The numbers coming out both nationally and locally are a reflection of the fall market and are in contrast with what we are seeing on the ground in early 2023. The market is absolutely in transition, although perhaps not in the same way that the national and local media have been making it seem. This is Rich Peterson, and today is Friday. This is the Peterson Report. So January's numbers are, and they provide our first insight into where the market may be headed. The median sales price for the area is $580,000. So this is up about 2% from last year. New listings, though, even though they're up from December, which we would expect, they're still down 40% from last year. And so historically, we would start to expect to see new listings creep up over the next couple of weeks, but the data right now just isn't showing that's where we're going. And it doesn't look like we're going to have a bumper crop of new inventory in the immediate future. For example, after the first week of February, new inventory is still running 40% behind last year's frenetic pace. However, overall, inventory is still up 9% from last year. And at the same time, average days on market is now at 64. So one statistic that I'm really paying close attention to is the sales price to list price. In other words, how close to the list price a home sells. Throughout the 2+ year pandemic market, homes were routinely selling over list price. Last month, however, homes were selling for about 94% of what the list price was. The pandemic has been a clear dividing line for the market, and it remains to be seen whether or not we're going to move forward or return to what we all think that we used to know. Historically, inventory really does bottom out the last week of January or early February, and then start to creep back up. And the spring selling season would start in late March, beginning of April. However, during the 2020, 2022 pandemic years, inventory often would crater in December, and it remained flat through the middle of April and not really spiking up until we got to May. This was absolutely shown in the data last year. It made for an extremely compressed selling season that ended up really only lasting May through July. Historically, low interest rates for 2021 and the first half of 2022 really enlarged the buyer pool and made it possible for more people than ever to purchase homes for the first time. Of course, as we know, interest rates began a steep climb in mid-June and reached their 2022 peak in October at around 7.5%. After the chaotic end to 2022, what the housing market desperately needs is stability, and it appeared that we were headed in that direction. The market can withstand continued interest rates in the low sixes as long as they stay in that range. Continued volatility, however, will have a dampening effect on the market. Last week, the Fed, as expected, only raised the short-term borrowing rate by 0.25%. Many economists felt as though this signaled an end to the continued significant increases over the coming months. Cut to the beginning of the week, where there was a stronger than expected job report. In response, Fed Chair Powell indicated that they would look closely, and that, quote, the reality is we're going to react to the data. This overheated response caused investors in the bond market to overreact, and then rates shot up from low 6% to almost 6.5% virtually overnight. I don't expect them to stay there long term, and I think this is probably a blip and that the rates are going to start coming down again, although not as quickly as they shot up. They never do. However, I do think it's really easy to overreact, and this is a danger. The danger is that we move away from a soft landing recession towards our harder landing, which means something significant, especially on the heels of Disney announcing that they're laying off like 7,500, 8,000 workers this week. It's extremely important that the Fed doesn't overreact, although given Powell's words, it seems like they might. I am hopeful that while he's looking at the jobs report, he takes a deeper dive into the numbers. For instance, according to the MBS, a data firm, 70% of the jobs added in January were actually lower wage part-time jobs, and the rest of this was a correction of numbers that they had expected. This in no way signifies an overheated economy that needs to be arbitrarily cooled. Rather, it shows that people need multiple part-time jobs just to stay afloat and afford rent in most cities. I'm hopeful that the Fed will take this into account and stay on track with just a much more modest interest rate hikes of 0.25%, like they had been signaling, and then really let things simmer a bit. I am solidly on board with Paul Krugman's comments from early January, where he cautioned the Fed against over-tweaking, evoking memories of the inflationary period in the early 80s. There is no question, of course, that affordability is an issue, especially here in California, but a full-blown recession won't change that. It is a principal reason why there are so few homes for sale right now. Many homeowners that would have otherwise have moved up or down are currently sitting on sub 3% mortgages when you consider that home prices are still up year over year with 6% mortgages. It makes sense that sellers are staying put. Unless I absolutely had to move or I could simply pay cash, I don't think that I would. The good news is that mortgage applications appear to be up over the past few months and buyer activity seems to be picking up as well. The new construction over in Watson Ranch is selling at a really good clip. I'm also seeing homes that are well priced and turnkey go quickly. Five Stetson Drive in American Canyon is one example. For me, the real test, though, of where the market is headed will be a home like 261 Los Altos Place. Listed at 550, the home is dated and it sounds like it may be unfinished. And actually, I took a look at some of the pictures and it looks unfinished. All the floor coverings have been removed and it's just concrete. Really? Even though it's larger than most of the other Rancho Del Mar homes. It's about 50,000. That's being generous. It's probably about 70,000 higher than where the rest of the market was back in the fall. If this home goes at its present value, it's going to be an absolutely bananas spring selling season. It will be interesting to see how it all comes out. That's all for this week's Peterson Report. I hope that you have a great weekend, and I'll see you on the flip side.